And now, welcome to the Patriot Pulse podcast.
And hello, everybody. It is good to see y'all tonight. And this is kind of unusual. I'm sitting here in my office doing the podcast, and out the window it is dark outside. We're usually at 9 a.m. in the morning, but this, as you might figure out, is a special evening edition of the Patriot Pulse podcast. And we have a special guest tonight, Tony Shoup. And I'll tell you a little bit about her in a minute before we bring her on the show. But before that, like we always do, just want to ask you to help us overcome the algorithms that are shadow banning us, whether you're watching us on Facebook, X, Rumble, Kick, Twitch, YouTube. Like us, follow us, share it, whatever you can do to help us beat those algorithms and the censoring. And before we get in here, we just like we do on our regular Tuesday, we're going to do a little shout out to our sponsor here that helps keep us on the air.
Need to get your brand noticed, remembered, and loved? At Everything Printed Promo, we turn your logo into walking, talking, shareable billboards. Whatever the occasion, we make you look amazing every time. Pens, shirts, drinkware, tech gadgets, you dream it, we print it perfectly. Visit everythingprintedpromo.com or call 888-619-9286 today. First-time customers get 15% off. Let's make your brand unforgettable.
Okay, now that we've done that little bit of business there, our guest tonight is Tony Shoup. She is the co-founder and CEO of Audit the Vote PA and the voice behind the Substack blog From Mom to Patriot. A devoted mother turned grassroots leader, she has trained thousands across the country to stand for liberty, strengthen their communities, and lead with their God-given strengths. Tony's passion to educate, equip, and inspire everyday Americans to get off the sidelines and into the fight to save the republic and rebuild liberty. And so with that said, let me get Tony on the screen here. Tony, good evening.
Thanks for having me. Good evening to you.
Yeah, so good you could join us tonight. So anyways, I got it before I even get started, because I know your special relationship with Josh Shapiro. I just launched a new Facebook page tonight. It's called Shapiro Must Go. So
I like it.
So it's going to be dedicated between now and November to do everything we can to get rid of them once and for all. So you might, after we get done with the show, you might check that out. It's Shapiro Must Go on Facebook. So
wonderful.
Anyways, I was going through your Substack and some of your other information, and why don't we start out with, tell us, because you use that term from mom to patriot, tell us how you did go from mom to patriot. What inspired you to do this?
Well, that's the reason I titled my Substack blog that, is because I feel like before 2020, I was just an average, everyday, normal American citizen I'm a mom of 3 kids. I have 3 daughters. I was doing what I thought the good Christian life was supposed to be like, taking my kids to church, raising them as best I could. They were younger, much younger. They're 8, 11, and 15. And back then they were 2, 5, and 8. And so I used to like to say I was wiping butts and feeding faces. And I just had no idea what was going on. I paid no attention. I never watched the news. I only voted in presidential elections. I didn't even know what a primary was. Neither did my husband. And he was like paying attention, actually. And he didn't know what a primary was either. And when the governor shut the schools down, Governor Wolf at the time in Pennsylvania, that was my wake up call. It was an instantaneous overnight, oh my gosh, what the heck is wrong? And I got so involved and so into learning history, studying what the heck our government was supposed to be, civics. I still can't seem to get enough. I just have this never ending thirst for learning now that I didn't have before 2020, especially when it comes to history and government and policies and civics. And that's why I called it From Mom to Patriot, because I feel like I just went from an average everyday mom to, of course, I'm still a mom. I have a good friend that jokes with me and says, so you're not a mom anymore? I'm like, well, yeah, but I feel like I went from just a mom to being just on the front lines of what we're watching as a battle for the soul of our country. And that's how it happened.
True.
So, you have a lot. Again, I looked at your Substack. You have a lot of different topics on there. But would you say you have a primary focus or something that really, of all those different subjects, keep you motivated? Is it the vote? Is it the voting integrity? What is it that keeps you involved? Is there a specific focus?
Well, when I first woke up to all of this in my prayer time, I really felt that I was being called to just kind of share who I became since becoming a Christian. I don't consider myself being raised a Christian, although I was raised in a very good home. I had wonderful parents, very conservative values, but I grew up in the Catholic Church. And so, and I'm not bashing Catholics either, but for me personally, I just didn't really know what a relationship with Jesus meant growing up, even though I went to church every Sunday. And so when that changed for me and my husband together, we actually got saved, what the Christian world calls getting saved on the same day.
Right.
Everything about how I saw the world kind of shifted. And I feel like I started a second journey of starting to try to read the Bible and understand, try to talk to God like he was a friend and a real person instead of this mystical being that we're not really sure how he functions. And so when I first woke up to all of this, a lot of my friends and family, I wasn't real outspoken about my faith life. And so a lot of them didn't really know the lens at which I viewed the world. And I really felt on my heart that it was time to show the world who I became since becoming a Christian. And so that's, I think, why you see this smattering of topics on there, because I just feel led to share my heart and to share who I am in my life with the world. And that is obviously goes in a lot of different directions, as you can see. So I joke with my kids and tell them, if you think I'm hard to be around, imagine if you lived in my head, because my head.
Yeah. My wife says that she doesn't want anything to do with that part. Trying to figure out what's going on inside my head. So I can relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it goes a million directions all at once. And I feel like my Substack blog is a good indication of that. However, to your point of elections and voting, as exhausting as this battle has gotten to be at times, especially for election integrity, and I've prayed about, am I supposed to go another direction? Am I supposed to leave the movement? Anytime I see anything about elections or mail ballots or anything, something perks up on the inside of me and it motivates me. And that's what tells me that, no, this is, for whatever reason, this is the lane that I'm in for now, maybe forever. And I'll just keep asking God, if he wants to shift, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Back to your point on your faith journey. I can't say this is across the board, but in my association with many people in this patriot movement, if you want to call it that, I think Christianity and patriotism they're almost inseparable. Everybody I speak to that is very patriot, very gung ho, very in the movement, they all have a very strong faith. I don't know what to conclude from that. I'm just bringing it out because you mentioned it, and you're just another example of that. Of faith and patriotism seem to mesh in this movement. So
they really do. And I remember noticing that right away too when I got involved in this. Is I would get on different Zoom calls, or I would get into these political circles, and they were kicking it off with a prayer, or they would mention a Bible verse, and that was comforting but surprising to me as well. I agree with you. And what I've found from studying the founders, as much history as I am, is the founders were deeply faithful men as well. And yet today we're kind of taught that they were just deists. They throw that term around a lot, which I've learned along the way just means someone that believes there's a creator, but doesn't believe in the Bible and doesn't believe that God orchestrates things on a daily basis, or that he wants to be involved with us in our daily life. But yet if you go and read all of their original writings or biographies about them, they quote scripture themselves an awful lot. So a deist doesn't quote scripture. If they don't believe that the Bible is supposed to be this entity that we walk with daily, then why would they quote it? And so
I think the whole idea of them being a deist is incorrect anyway. I don't know who started that. Fred's wife, Tanya, we talked about that one time, and you really can't find any evidence to support that. So let's talk politics, specifically Pennsylvania politics. And as I mentioned in the promo or the intro, you were founder of the Audit the Vote PA, and that started with the 2020 election, or selection, I guess you should say. Did that start your relationship, and I'm going to use that term very lightly or loosely and facetiously, with Josh Shapiro? I got to keep bringing that up because the things I've been reading on your stuff. All right, God, I won't say it that way again, I promise. But you did Audit the Vote, and anybody that tried to bring light to the voter fraud was, it's like they had a target on their back. So is that kind of, tell me about your beginning of the Audit the Vote PA.
Well, my relationship, I'll start with this and then I'll back up. My relationship, if you will. I like calling it that. I might start calling it that. My relationship or affiliation with Josh Shapiro didn't become official until the fall of 2022, when he called me out on his campaign social media pages saying I was a lunatic conspiracy theorist and that I pushed Trump's baseless claims of election fraud, which we'll probably get into that a little more. But Audit the Vote started because I had taken, in my quest for information and trying to understand what it was we were watching unfold around us in the aftermath of the pandemic, I took a Constitution class that was powered by Patriot Academy. And it was all online. It was in the fall of 2020. Rick Green was offering it with some of his staff at the time, and it was free, and it was 6 weeks. And a good friend of mine, we found it together, saw an advertisement for it, decided to sign up together, and took it all on Zoom. And we were just blown away with how much we didn't know about history and the Constitution. And we were like, wow, how are they able to get away with COVID? Because 80% of Americans can't even name the 5 freedoms that are listed in the First Amendment. They don't know that it was a complete violation of our rights to tell us you can't gather in groups of 10 or more. That's why the founders gave us the right to assemble. And I had heard that in my young adult life, that we have freedoms here that they don't have everywhere else. And even in gatherings, people can't gather like this. I never understood what that meant until COVID. And when they were trying to shut us down and telling us you can't go to restaurants, shutting businesses down. They said they didn't shut down the churches, but you can't gather in a group of 10 or more. Well, then how are you going to go to church if you can't be around 10 or more people? That's kind of exactly what they did. And they were offering as the solution. They said, well, you can sign up as this thing called a Constitution coach at the time, and you can host these classes because all of the videos, it's basically a video lesson that you're facilitating. And if you can get people in a room and hit play, you can share this information with other people. Well, my co-founder of Audit the Vote, Karen Taylor, we were like, this is a no-brainer. Of course, let's just start. We were already screaming from the rooftops that something was awry. And when they stole the 2020 election, we were in the middle of hosting our first Constitution class. So we had shared it on our social medias. We maybe had 15 people on a Zoom one night a week. We were learning together and fellowshipping, and just at the time we were starving for that connection. If you remember COVID, it's just people could not get enough camaraderie with like-minded people, and wondering, it was stuck at home. Like, am I the only lunatic? That I was one of the rule breakers that 2 weeks in, I was inviting people over for dinner at my house. I think that this is a little.
That's my wife chime in because she does that. She taught the Constitution classes and all that stuff too with Rick Green. She's been involved with that for years.
Yes. Oh my gosh, what a small world. That's so awesome. And that was my beginning of Audit the Vote. And the reason Audit the Vote started, I'll wrap up and answer to your question, is because we learned enough in that class to be mildly dangerous, and that we really didn't know what the heck we were doing. But we were inspired in that class that we had to do something when we saw government get out of check. And so when they inaugurated Joe Biden in January, all the stuff we had seen that we documented on our website, from votes literally switching on live TV, 19,000 some odd, I can't ever remember the exact number, directly from Trump to Biden, all the craziness we saw. And yet we inaugurated what I thought and still believe was an illegitimate president. We can't just let this go. And so that was kind of the birth of Audit the Vote, was let's just put this stuff out there, put our names out there, and see if we can find anyone that's as crazy as we are that thinks that something went wrong.
Yeah,
with my wife
I'm with you. I'm with you on that 100%. This podcast started as actually we changed our name this past year in 2025, but we started as two guys drinking coffee. Just another friend and I just turned a iPhone on at a restaurant, and we started doing Facebook Lives. But it started all about the same time what you're talking about with the scamdemic, and also with the 2020 election being stolen. And I'm with you. I mean, that we went through. It was a coup d'état in November of 2020. There's no other way to describe it. And we went through 4 years of hell with illegitimate buffoon sitting in the Oval Office. There was just no other way to describe it. So let me, I'm going to ask you a very pointed question, since we got a very important midterm coming up and we're seeing a lot of things going on. Do you think we really have a chance to have a fair, and I won't say free and fair, it's fair and honest, an honest election again? Is that even possible?
If we hadn't experienced 2024 the way that we did, I would say no, but I do think that it is a miracle, quite honestly, that we got President Trump back in what I think is his rightful place in the White House. Now, if you had asked me in the summer of 2024 how I thought November was going to go, I was a nervous wreck because we didn't have any real election reform. We saw a lot of shenanigans. We got on the ground with the Audit the Vote and just started really sinking our teeth in at the local level, in counties, in precincts, trying to understand the process. Where did things go wrong? And we knew so much. I still know so much of the nitty gritty weeds and details that it felt like an insurmountable task because nothing was fixed. We know something went wrong. It looked like our elections are being controlled by an outside source for everyone that we watched after 2020, including primaries, including 2022 gubernatorial race. And so I thought, I don't know how this is really going to go. But again, I learned through Patriot Academy studying history that duty is ours and results are God's, a famous quote by John Quincy Adams. And it's our duty.
I hear that quote all the time.
Right? It was my Audit the Vote mantra. Patriot Academy, of course, uses it all the time. Duty is ours, results are God's. It's our duty to keep going and leave the results up to him. And so I kept going. And in my prayer time, asking God, what am I supposed to focus on now? And I felt impressed upon my heart that I was to get poll watchers in Allegheny County specifically, because I live very close to Pittsburgh. I'm in Beaver County. I know you said, I think, Jim, that you're in Bradford, so we're not.
Yeah, I thought you were on the east side of the state, and here to find out you're right just south of us here.
I'm in Western PA. I was born and raised in Lawrence County. Newcastle is where I grew up, and now I live in Beaver. But I'm very close to Allegheny. And so, and I saw so many things. I went to the warehouse, multiple elections to watch Allegheny do the mail ballot process. And Allegheny is such a big county. And most people don't know this. They have the largest number of registered Republicans in any one county statewide, even though they're a blue county because of their size. Yeah. And so I felt like they can't steal this whole state without Allegheny. Yes, Philly's a mess. They're probably going to do crazy stuff there. But they need Allegheny in order to steal the whole state. So I felt like him saying, you just get eyes everywhere you can in Pittsburgh. And that's your job. And so that's what I buckled down in the late summer, early fall of 2024, found a donor who was able to help me fund that program so I could pay people to get on the ground. And we launched, I would call, a fairly successful effort of what we just called Eyes on the Ballots. And we're going to do it again in the midterms, where I put a training system together, 4 different module videos, each 15 minutes long, that trains people. Here's what to look for before election day, in the morning before the polls open. Once the polls are open, what are you watching for? What do you look for when they close? And then what are we watching for afterwards? And it's engaging, and it's simple, and it's a way better system than anything else I had seen our state do. I learned this in Georgia, actually. I flew to Georgia for the Herschel Walker, Raphael Warnock race in December, I want to say, of 21. And I watched down there, and I learned this, and I brought it back and adapted it as best I could to Pennsylvania election code. And so we're going to do that again for the midterm. So to answer your question, kind of a long way to say, I have faith in the fact that I can get people across the state trained and eyes on the process. And I think if we get enough of that, it'll be honest enough that we
Okay.
can somewhat trust the outcome. Now, if the SAVE Act passes, we're in business. But you're seeing right now a media frenzy and onslaught on that whole thing. And I don't know really how that's going to pan out. That would be an incredible blessing, which I'm hoping comes to pass. But if it doesn't, we are going to poll watch again. And I believe that if we get enough people out, we'll have an honest enough election.
Yeah. You said there was eyes on the ballot or vote, or what did you say?
We called it actually I called it Eyes on 412 because 412, everyone in Pittsburgh, that's an area code down here that everybody knows. Yeah. So I had called it Eyes on 412. This time we're going to call it Eyes on the ballots.
Because I think that's great. I mean, you say you have your training available. I mean, we talk about in McKean County. I'm sure you could talk about this for every county across the country. You know, number one, getting poll watchers signed up and registered and get them in there is it's difficult to get people to volunteer. Fred and his wife Tanya are both poll watchers in their precinct. So is this something that you can distribute to other counties, to other, people that want to, to try to do something to duplicate what you're doing down there?
Absolutely. That's the plan. Absolutely. My plan, I'm actually running. This is the first time I'm even saying this out loud. So breaking news on your podcast, Jim. I'm running for a state committee seat in Beaver County because I want to have I just want to have more influence in the state party to be able to do programs like this statewide. So if I do get elected, that is one of my initiatives, is to work with the chair of the PAGOP or any other county chair that is willing to connect and work with me, which a lot of them already are and have over the years, but to get this initiative rolled out in as many counties as possible that the counties will use. And the Dems too, I say GOP, it's really not a partisan issue. It's just good luck getting Democrats in Pennsylvania to take us seriously and want to work with us. But really any organization that wants to understand the process can use this training. And my plan is to get it as far and wide across the state as possible. So yes, you'll be able to access it.
So I can, if I have people interested, in McKean or Potter County up here, Warren County, they're border counties of ours. So I know their chairmen and chairwomen pretty well. I can give them your contact information.
Actually, if you just send them to the web, auditthevotepa.com is our website. It's not on there yet, but it will be probably before the primaries, definitely right after the primaries. There will be a tab on there that you can click on for poll watcher training, and it'll walk you through. It'll have all the videos and even the documents for you to print out to take with you on election day, so you know what to keep track of. Yeah. Where to report something when it goes wrong, who to call, all of that stuff is going to be on our website.
Perfect. I think that's great. I'm surprised nobody has done that.
Right.
I mean, there's poll watcher training, but it's
yes,
it's not. Well, Fred, you've gone through it. What do you think about it?
Several of it, yeah. When Mastriano was running, we did the whole video and poll trial. They even gave us phone numbers to call and people to contact for certain situations. We did all that stuff. Yeah, you're right. It's good.
Yeah. It's not very in depth though. What they had done, which was mostly from the RNC level, which is what I saw in 2024. And I don't mean to totally throw them under the bus, although I do that often enough, is that it just isn't, it's too high level. And maybe that's because you really do have to be on the ground in your area and know your county and your community to have an impact. But what I did was a lot more in depth and a lot more intensive than anything that I had seen the party put out. So I'm hoping again to work with the party to put this out together. It's almost like sometimes you think the party doesn't really want to win, because to your point, Fred, why weren't they doing a little more depth and detail to this?
Mm-hmm.
Almost like they don't want to win.
But it just seems, the thing is Harrisburg doesn't want to listen to anything you got to say anyway. That's the hard part.
Yep.
Well, I'll tell you what, up until recently, I have been very involved with the McKean County Republican Committee on their executive board and so on. And it's amazing how many people I can say people on the committee, but also state representatives that will swear up and down that there was nothing wrong with our elections. It was an honest election in 2020 and 2022, and they it's like they're parroting the same narrative. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. I know you work, or you know Doug Mastriano. I was on his 2022 McKean County campaign, but he was uncovering evidence of the fraud in 2020. Yet these quote unquote Republicans are still saying no, it was all fair. Don't go down that road. And I shake my head and I say, why are they doing this? Why are they saying this? I don't understand. I could see why a Democrat would say it, but why a Republican?
Well, I think from what we've just seen exposed recently in the last year, I mean, look at all the fraud they uncovered in Minnesota with Nick Shirley and a young YouTuber kid. We've got these monstrous media outlets. Our mainstream media is completely corrupt and complicit, in my opinion. Huge budgets, tons of equipment, and you have a young kid with a microphone that he probably bought on Amazon and a YouTube channel exposing one of the biggest fraud scams this decade has seen. Why? Right. And so to your point, I just think they get comfortable in, their job is Pennsylvania legislature is a full-time position. Not all the states are like that. And they're paid incredibly well. Their starting salaries in the House are $80,000 to $90,000. That's their starting salary that you and I are paying on a yearly basis.
Of course.
And I think they get really comfortable in that, and rocking the boat just isn't worth it.
Yeah. It's amazing. And so going back, I know you were involved with, or at least Doug Mastriano, the work that he was doing in the Senate committee, and I think it was horrendous that the state GOP took his committee away from him right when he was uncovering all the fraud. Unfortunately,
that was the Senate leadership. Actually, I was heavily involved with his staff at the time. That was the leadership in the Senate at the time that fired his chief of staff and moved around all his staff because he was going to try to force them to send the subpoenas to the State Department for all the records that Maricopa County had received when they did their audit in the summer of 2021. Yeah. And I knew right then that I knew it was corrupt, but I thought we could make a difference in our own states. I'm not saying we can't anymore, but that was another level of, wow, this is really deep. Like, this goes so much deeper than any of us had imagined at that point. That was an eye opener for me that summer.
And I'll tell you what, it points to me anyway, and I can't prove this, so I'm just going to say it, is my opinion, is if the state leadership, the GOP leadership, shut the door on those investigations, what does that say about them? Are they complicit? It makes you wonder.
It certainly does.
I don't know. It does to me anyway. Well, let me ask you this and just shift a little bit, because you've got a vote. And now you're being very proactive in that Eyes on the Ballots initiative. But I'm involved with other, like I'm involved with Unite for Freedom. I've had Douglas Frank, and David Clements both on the podcast before. David Clements has been on a couple times. As a matter
Great
of fact.
friends of mine, both of them.
So I was just going to ask you. Do you have any affiliation? Have you worked with these people? Have you collaborated with them, or do you still?
I consider both of them friends, very good friends. I have a much closer relationship with Dr. Frank than I did David Clements, although I've worked alongside both of them I guess we all sort of met. I met Dr. Frank earlier than this, but I met David Clements and all of those big names that were in the election integrity movement, since 2020, the ones that were screaming. We call ourselves like the misfits of the country at the time, because we were it felt like there was a small group of us that were willing to put our necks out there and say something is wrong and just not let it go. and scream from the rooftops. Mike Lindell was the ringleader of it at the time. And whether you agree with what he did or think that his stuff was real or think that he's crazy, the man was willing to lay it all out there. I mean, lose his entire fortune for the sake of our elections. And for that he will forever have my respect. And he gets an immeasurable amount of grace from me, because if it wasn't for him and his platform and him being willing to get out there and scream from the rooftops and risk it all, someone like me that didn't have any connections would have never gotten a voice. And so when he had his cyber symposium, the first one he ever did in August of 2021, that's where I met those guys, most of them for the first time. Not Dr. Frank, we had known each other, but I met David Clements and Seth Keschels and just all those guys that were part of Joe Oltmans, any of the national voices that you see. And so, yes, I have collaborated. We brought Professor Clements to Pittsburgh a few years ago and did his movie, Let My People Go, which is an excellent documentary he put together. And Dr. Frank and I have worked closely on different initiatives over the years, multiple times, just trying different things at the local level, different strategies, different game plans. So both of those guys have been a great resource, and I could call them up and ask them questions about, here's what I'm thinking is going to work in Pennsylvania. What are you guys seeing across the country? Because I guess the difference is I'm still, when it comes to election integrity, very local focused. I mean, Pennsylvania, as most people in Pennsylvania know me for election integrity, but I'm not known all over the country the way they are. And so I appreciate having resources like them that I can call, or even Catherine Engelbrecht from True the Vote. I worked on election day. I was on the phone with her in 2024, and she was helping me report inconsistencies properly through the proper channels, file the complaint on the State Department website, so that if we needed to use those things in court, they couldn't say, well, you didn't dot your I's and cross your T's the way you should have. That was one of the biggest things from 2020, why we didn't see any movement. Nobody really knew what was happening. We were all just kind of like angry zombies for a while, just trying to figure out what we knew something went wrong, but no one understood enough that they could put something together, bring it to a court and say, look at this. But that changed in 2024. So all of those folks, True the Vote, I'm directing a lot of people right now to True the Vote's tools that they're building on their website. They have one now called LegiTrack, that no matter what state you're in, if you go to legitrack.org, you can look and see what election integrity legislation they're working on in your state. Pennsylvania, unfortunately, they're not doing a whole lot that's good, but other states are. And so, yes, to all of those national voices. Now, it's been a rocky road. There's been falling outs. And I'm sure if you're involved in your county committee, you see it every day, the infighting, the egos, the sometimes very good people just disagree on something and it ends up fracturing the relationship. We've seen that to the nth degree in the election integrity community. But by and large, I try to publicly not spill that stuff out, because we've all sacrificed and put our name on the line for this cause. And so, yeah, those guys are right up there with everybody else that's just been in this fight from the beginning, and for no reason other than to fix the country and get fair elections.
Yeah, they're certainly not gaining anything from it personally. I mean, none of them. I mean, David Clements, lost his entire career.
Yes.
And
yes,
Dr. Frank, although he didn't suffer the slings and arrows that David did, he's devoted his life full time now to this. He travels all over the country and tries to inspire the grassroots to get involved, and offers himself as a resource free of charge to war game different ideas and strategies. It's just the community is very, very helpful. Yeah, I was just going to say, he does this all on his own dime, and I know that personally because he's coming to Bradford, and he's probably going to do maybe a 4-town suite. He's going to be up in this area for 4 days. Wednesday is the 25th. That's about when he's going to get into Bradford, I think, and then he's going to work some schedule around that. So March 25th, he'll be in Bradford, and then areas around here too, just to talk about what he's doing and the proof that he's that he has uncovered in his in the work that he's been doing. So yeah, I'm excited about getting him up here. And all these people are excellent people. So
I would just I would caution the audience, as this is something I've learned. Nobody's got the silver bullet. No one has this figured out. That's kind of the problem. And you have to find the balance between bringing people like Dr. Frank in and learning from them and getting something you can actually use, and not looking at them as not idols. Idol's not the right word, but the silver bullet to this is it.
Right.
This is how we're going to fix everything. Because we don't know. That's why why is the Epstein list? Why isn't anybody in jail? Because we're all still trying to figure out how the frick to hold these people accountable. So
that's why it's important, I think, Tony, to be, you don't just jump on the Dr. Frank bandwagon. You just don't jump on Unite for Freedom. You don't, or in other words, you use all of these resources and glean off them what you can or what works or what information you need, and then move forward with that. And that gives you a balance, like you were saying, to your point. That's a more balanced approach to it.
Yep. 100%.
And you got to find that common ground and stop the division, because that's a big issue that's been for years with the Republican Party. Is they can't find that common ground. They just want to fight about every little tedious little thing.
Yep. And I think that's just people in general. I think that's my opinion. This is a new season for me in that I'm teaching. My oldest daughter's in 9th grade. She's in kind of a hybrid co-op homeschool situation where I was asked to teach a group of 10th graders Algebra 2 this year. And so you ask, why do I post so much? Because I have so many different life experiences. I'm always trying to share it with other people and help them. But this has been an eye opener for me, because now I'm working with 15, 16-year-olds teaching them math. And I'm seeing the same patterns of human behavior in my math class that I see in my local Republican, whatever, my local election. It's the same sin nature. It's the same. We're all selfish. We all want to be heard. We all think we're right all the time. And it's just those basic skills of understanding how to work with people that I think could be a game changer if we could get the MAGA, whatever you call it, conservative MAGA political movement to understand that you've got to learn some basic people skills and leadership skills, or we're never going to solve this problem of infighting and fractures. And you're never going to solve it completely because it's human nature. But I was on the phone yesterday telling somebody, I used to wonder, how the heck did Alexander Hamilton get shot by Aaron Burr, a guy that he fought shoulder to shoulder with in the American Revolution, go up against the largest military power on the planet and win. And a handful of years later, the guy shoots him dead. And now I understand how that happens. So because you get in the trenches with people, and you might be on each other's side for one thing, but things happen and things change. And it's ever so clear who were the other two that end up enemies for a while and reconciled? John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. I think didn't speak for over a decade at one point, and yet they were, connected at the hip for a while, fighting together. And we're watching. I feel like since 2020, at least I have watched a modern day version of that play out right in front of my eyes.
It's funny. We got a lot in common. My wife homeschooled all my kids too, and we were a part of a huge co-op, just like you are. We are. Do the same thing. It's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. A lot of common. That's pretty cool. Yes,
I'll have to connect after this. I don't know how we haven't crossed paths before.
My wife's connected to a ton of people who homeschool. I'm surprised.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we are a couple 100 miles away, so
that's probably why.
Yeah. So speaking of teaching and all of that, and I know when we first connected, and I asked you to be on the podcast, I know you wanted to talk about Patriot Academy a little bit. And so, and since you are a coach, and Tanya is a coach too, as a matter of fact, she put a comment on here. She says, I'm a coach. And so Tanya is listening too. Tell us a little bit about your experience with the Patriot Academy. I put up on the screen while you were talking about it, just you were listed in there as a coach on the page. Tell us a little bit about it and why people would want to be interested in it, and what it's done for you and all of that.
Yeah, Patriot Academy. I'm so thankful for them. First of all, I'm on staff, so that's why I'm on their website. You see that there as an ambassador. If it was not for them, Rick Green called me in February of 2023, and basically, long story short, asked if he could hire me, because I had at that point put about 3,000 to 4,000 students through Patriot Academy's Constitution classes. And
Nice.
they have gotten an explosion of growth of coaches, which is, Fred, why I'm surprised I don't. I hope maybe I would know her if I saw her, but if she's in the circle of coaches, I'm sure I've seen her name somewhere.
I'm sure.
There was an explosion that when I signed up to coach classes in the fall of 2020, there was maybe 1,000 of us nationwide that were also doing the same thing. Today, there's over 32,000 of us. So there was an explosion of growth happening in terms of people signing up and wanting to share this content in 2021, 2022, 2023. So Rick wanted to hire me on staff to train other people how to do what I did. And my role there has morphed and changed over the seasons and whatnot. But how I feel about them, I would not, Audit the Vote wouldn't exist without Patriot Academy. And the programs and the educational material that they're putting together, not only I believe are the best tool that average everyday person can use to make an impact in their community. What Rick's doing on the campus in Fredericksburg, Texas is nothing short of phenomenal. He's building a campus that right now, probably the hottest thing is what's called the Patriot Institute. It's a 9-month program that students can go to when they graduate high school, not sure what they want to do. Should they go to college? Shouldn't they? They can go spend 9 months with the Patriot Institute staff, Rick Green, his sons, his kids, his family. Chris Dunham is the dean of the Patriot Institute. And they get taught apologetics and they get taught real history, and they learn leadership principles and communication skills and really immersed in a system to help them find their purpose. So that if they end up needing, we're not telling people, I don't tell my kids, although I am half-heartedly hoping they don't want to go to college for a multitude of reasons. But if I'm not telling them they can't go, but I'm encouraging them, my husband and I both, to seek God first, and that he has a purpose and a plan for your life. And if that purpose and plan is, a doctor, lawyer, engineer, you're probably going to have to go to college to get a degree to do that. I don't want someone operating on me that hasn't been to med school. Although we could argue what med school, because our med schools are woke and wanting to, mutilate children. That's a separate topic probably for another day. But I want them to follow their purpose. And the Patriot Institute is helping students in that 9-month period of time get grounded in biblical truth and discover their purpose, so that if they do have to go into the woke university world, although there's a very small number of non-woke universities nowadays, they're less susceptible to the propaganda, and they can truly go into the culture and David Barton's 7 Mountains and make an impact for the kingdom like God has called them to do. Right. That's just one. So Patriot, that's just one of their programs that has emerged since 2020. Their newest class curriculum is called Rebuilding Liberty. I just wrapped up a 4-week series of that I do on Zooms last month. This month, I'm starting a Chasing American Legends class, which is all about American history, studying it through the eyes of the Green family when their kids were little, traveling to different landmarks. It's incredible. That's going to start this upcoming Monday. They're going into their Leadership Congress season. I could talk for days. Their Leadership Congress season, where they bring young people to not just the campus in Fredericksburg, where they have their main big yearly event at the end of July, but they travel to different state capitals. They hit one in every region of the country, and they bring young people between the ages of 16 and 25 down, and they put them in the shoes of a legislator for a day. They teach them what it's like to write a bill. How does a bill get out of committee? How does it end up getting to the governor's desk? They run them through all of that. And so, as you can see, I'm kind of a walking billboard for them, because I believe so wholeheartedly in the programs that they're putting together to truly save the republic.
Yeah. Well, the sad thing is that high schools don't teach civics anymore.
They don't. They call it social studies.
Well, but I'm not even sure. It's been so long. Let me put it this way. My youngest is going to be 48 this summer. So you can see it's been a long time since I've had kids in high school. But I talk to some kids, and unless they have parents that are really involved, they're just not being taught. Like just what you were talking about. How does Congress work? How does our government work? They don't know, and it's sad. So it's up to parents, or it's up to programs like this to teach it, because the schools have abandoned that.
Yes,
they stopped teaching that stuff when they got rid of Schoolhouse Rock videos. They didn't want you to know about it.
Just a bill on Capitol Hill. Oh,
that's
yeah.
Right. I mean, it goes that far back. I mean, at least back then, cartoons actually taught you something.
Yes.
Good point. Yes. Good point.
At the risk of sounding like a conspiracy theorist, it feels like it's by design that they did that.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%. I do. They want people dumbed down so they can't figure out what's going on.
100%.
It's probably you're probably right, Fred. It's probably by design. You know, I don't think anything anymore happens by accident. I'm just
Why do
too
you
much
think
of
they
a
write
skeptic.
bills so difficult to read?
Right?
They write
Hundreds of
bills so
pages
difficult to
long.
read so that people won't take the time to study it.
Yep. Hundreds of pages long that you can't possibly review it thorough enough to take an informed vote. There's no way. And if you see how many they put out in a legislative session, it's just boggles your mind. But all that to say, if your audience, you too, if you guys have kids or grandkids in that age range, go to patriotacademy.com, look up the Leadership Congress schedule. My oldest daughter is going to go to her first one this summer in Dover, Delaware. So she's going to get one, and she has a school friend too. I'm trying to get as many young kids as possible. That's part of my job, is to get as many young kids as possible to go to this program. They'll get to write a bill. She'll get to 3 days, July 8th, 9th, and 10th is Dover, Delaware, but there's others. Again, go to the website, patriotacademy.com, and look up Leadership Congress. But thank God there's people that are putting tools like that together so that we can get educated, even though the public school system is not doing it.
Well, let me ask you a question about Patriot Academy and their programs and all of that, since you are on their staff and part of your job is promoting this. So I know Tanya has coached a couple classes here. It's not real easy to get people interested in that. How do you promote it to get people from a small, maybe a slighter, or you're talking to them and that sounds interesting too. Yeah, I'm willing to devote 8, 10, 12 weeks to learning this stuff. How do you promote that?
I like to ask questions. I'm always asking questions myself. And so when I'm having conversations with people, whether it's on social media or it's in person, I just like asking them, hey, what do you think about what's going on in the world today? It's kind of crazy. We're seeing, at least on social media, a lot of people supposedly not supporting President Trump anymore. Not really feeling that on the ground. Yes, there's people that are not happy with everything he's doing. We're never going to be 100% happy regardless of who we pick, if they end up getting elected or not. I think it's important for us to have those tough conversations and ask questions from people that are on the other side of the aisle. And that's typically how I draw people in. I like asking them or letting them know there's 2 statistics that I think are really simple to remember that you can share with anybody. I've done this with Uber drivers. I've done this with anybody in my sphere of influence. That 70% of Americans can't name the 3 branches of government. That's right. 100% truth. Yeah. And 80% can't name more than one of the 5 freedoms in the First Amendment. So if you get a conversation going around that, then you just simply ask them, can you name them? And when they realize they can't, then it's just a bridge of, well, let me tell you about this class I'm hosting. And here's how you can get involved if you want to. Your own personal, I would say if she hasn't, it sounds like she's already done classes and been successful at it, but
Tanya, she's had 2.
She's had 2?
Yeah.
That's great. And don't be if there's been 2 people in it, however many people there's been in it, you never know who that other person that you're going to influence or the seeds that you're planting. Duty is ours, results are God's. However, I hope she's not beating herself up if she didn't have the success that she wanted in terms of people attending and people wanting to do it. Because you never know. We keep going one day at a time, one 24-hour period of time, one foot in front of the other, and believe that God is going to do the rest. But I would say her own story, anybody think about their own personal connection with the courses and what they've had and what they've experienced. That's going to influence people far more than anything you could memorize, or even those 2 statistics I threw out. I throw those out because that's what got me interested in the class. Yeah. I saw Rick Green, David Barton do a commercial, and I don't remember which one of them or both of them threw those stats out. And I was like, that's me. I fall into both of those categories. And I had been reading history books for 6 months. And I still didn't know the 3 branches of government. And so when they said, if you don't know the answers to these questions, you might want to take this class, and boom. So it's not easy, but it's a simple process. And if you can figure out what works for you, I've been on that track ever since, and now hired to do it. Thankfully, I know I started to tell you that about being on staff. I would not have been able to continue my efforts with Audit the Vote or just in activism in general, if Rick hadn't hired me. Because at that point, I hadn't worked in 2 years. My husband was in transition of his careers. He left corporate America to start a construction company. And while I was running all over the state trying to alert people about the 2020 election being stolen, he was home helping with the kids. So he was like not working a whole lot. So our savings took a hit. And I really needed to do something. And Rick calling me, offering me that job is what allowed me to continue in full-time activism work. So I'm super thankful to Patriot Academy for that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know Patriot Academy has a lot of different programs because I've been on their website. Do you have a recommendation? If somebody were to come, if I were to come to you and say, Tony, I just don't know where to start. I mean, they got so many things in there. What would you tell them?
I would tell them to download the Patriot U app on their phone or mobile device, to go to patriotu.com. It's an app. You can download it, create an account. There are some things behind a paywall, but a lot of stuff is free. So you'll have to put an email address and a password in, but you can access an awful lot of content for free. And then I would scroll down to the courses and just start binge watching the courses like you would a Netflix series. Rebuilding Liberty, I think, pops up first. It's their newest one. Then there's Biblical Citizenship in Modern America. There's Constitution Alive. And it's literally just like Netflix. You just click and the next one will automatically start. You know, that's how they sucker you in, all those like Hulu streaming platforms. You ever notice that? They just automatically, the next one. And so here you are 3 hours later after watching Blue Bloods, or at least maybe that's just me realizing like I just wasted a whole night. And what did I add any value? No. But if you do that, you're going to actually learn something and add some value to your life. That's, I think, the simplest thing. Patriot U, put it on your phone, start binge watching all their curriculum courses.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very similarly, I'm involved with, actually the county lead for the John Birch Society. And they have a lot of courses like that as well. So, I mean, there's so many resources out there, and I'm not trying to compare JBS to Patriot Academy at all. They're just two different. I mean, there's resources that you can use to learn these things.
And there's Hillsdale College has free things. You're right. There's tons of stuff. Just do something. I tell people, go do something.
Hillsdale is amazing for all the college courses they offer for free. I donate to them, just because they put it out there. I mean, you can get a degree from them too, but you can learn a lot. So the resources are out there. It just takes people to get the initiative and to learn about them, which is why it's important to talk about them on shows like this. So
Tanya's in everything. She's even a chapter chair for Moms for Liberty too. My wife, she does that too. So she's involved in that too. So her hands are full. She's got so much going on. So she's doing a little bit of everything, but
tell her I said thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're coming up almost to the top of the hour, Tony, and I want to give you an opportunity to any last thoughts, anything that you want to share that we maybe haven't touched on.
I think one of my strengths is just encouragement and uplifting. And I see things God has gifted me with I call it the gift of denial. I have a tendency to be able to see the good when nobody else does. And in this particular season of the world, I think that's not really a bad thing, because it's very easy to get discouraged right now and to look and see all the things that even today, what did President Trump, did he fire Kristi Noem or move her into a different department? And the hubbub is, did he fire her? What the heck's going on? It's so easy to get lost in the noise. But I think the important thing is to recognize our founders. You study our history and our founding. America did not win their independence and become the nation that it is today overnight. 11 years, the founders negotiated with King George before they wrote the Declaration of Independence, which was essentially their death warrant. And they knew what they were signing. They knew they were basically saying to the king, hey, come and take it. Give it your best shot. We're not backing down. And then the Revolutionary War was 8 years, and they lost more battles than they won. And it didn't look good for a good bit of the time. But 20 years late, just that 20 years, not including when the Pilgrims came here and the battles that they faced and all of that to me encourages me that we are in a battle for the soul of the nation, and it's a generational battle. And we may not see the fruits of our labor right now, but it is worth it, because duty is ours and results are God. So just encourage people to get involved somewhere, stay the course, expect that you might not see what you want to see in the time that you want to see it in, but God's in charge. So
Yeah, well, and we've talked many times on this show that it truly is at the very root a spiritual battle. It's
It really is.
we fight amongst ourselves. You can say Democrats versus Republican, conservatives versus liberals. There's a lot of evil in the world that we see, that we don't see even, but at the core of it all, it's a spiritual battle, and we're not gonna win it solely by fighting with our heads. We gotta fight it with our souls as well. So I'll just throw that in as 2 cents, because I can, knowing you, what little bit I do, and what a couple times we've talked, I can tell that the spiritual aspect plays a big part in your life as well. So I appreciate that. So
thank you guys for having me. We'll have to connect after
yeah,
this.
we're so glad. Yeah, and I would really like to stay in touch. I've been writing notes all through this thing. I want to get more information, but I'll stay in touch with you via email or whatever. But in any case, I appreciate you coming on the show tonight, Tony. And one of the things we always do is we always close our podcasts in prayer, with a word of prayer. Fred is my prayer warrior, and I always turn this part over to him. And Fred, I'm just going to ask you to hold Tony up in prayer and what she's doing and the activities she's involved with as we pray ourselves out of here tonight.
All right. Well, Lord, thank you for tonight and for this word and all this information. It's all good, Lord. I just look back at the sayings that people say, things get rougher as we get closer to the target. I just pray, Lord, that you would keep us focused and keep us dialed into what we're supposed to do. The closer we get to the target, the tougher it's going to get. But we know in the end, we win. So I ask, Lord, that you would give us wisdom and understanding to overcome any attacks of the enemy, and lead us and guide us into the truth. And I always say, separate the darkness from the light, and reveal it, and help us see the truth from the lie, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. And I'll add to that, pray a hedge of protection around you, Tony, and around your family, and around all the activities you're involved in.
Absolutely.
So God bless you, my friend, and we'll stay in touch.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, Tony. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
And for everybody else, as we close off, as we always say, be blessed
And be a blessing to others.